So we are the Alaska National Guard. I'm one of the 54 adjutants general out there that is facing the exact same problems and issues with their workforces. And the important thing is that I try to sit here and kind of explain to you what I know at this point in time and try to maybe provide a little history over the past 7 or 8 days of what's been going on and maybe where we're going in the future. If everyone stands up out of here and walks away and hasn't learned a darn thing, I'm probably pretty accurate in what I'm trying to communicate. That's how jacked up this is. I mean, the information changes every 5 minutes. And again, it's not to point fingers or anything, but we've never had a government shutdown where I'm not sure what the strategy is, because they've passed laws that said if you are furloughed, you'll eventually be paid if that is signed. That is not signed yet as far as I know, so that is not money in the bank. It is not a sure thing, but it was passed, I believe, unanimously by the House. The Senate will vote on it and the President will sign on it. And that means everybody that was furloughed will be paid. So 800,000 people jacked around with their jobs and stressed are going to get paid, but then you've got the folks that had to work because they were mandatory, and then you got the people sitting home, so now you've got kind of this divisive haves and have-nots. I mean, there's just no right answer. So I guess I'm going to probably sit here and say this is my number one point, my number one point, my number one point. I'm just going to make a bunch of points. First of all, resiliency and the ability to be flexible and work together as a team is paramount. Okay, understanding we are not in this alone. And this is not the active duty against the reserve, against the guard. There is no intent to put people in special categories and make people feel like this job description is more important than that job description. There is no effort to say the active duty takes primacy over our National Guard and the National Guard AGRs take primacy over federal technicians. That is not the intent at all. There is a law that was passed, which is pay our military. They wanted to bring the entire military back. So that first week was staffing and trying to understand what that law meant and how do you audit it and how do you comply with it. So during that time frame, Secretary Hagel gave direction, I believe. Again, I didn't hear him specifically, so I'm just assuming a little bit of his intent was to interpret that as broadly as possible and get our military members back to work as best we can without violating any anti-deficiency laws or any other constraints that are out there. So the Alaska National Guard, actually we're in very good stead. I think I was told this morning that we have 2 members out of over 4,000 people with our traditionals, so not less than that with our full-time people, 2 people that are not back, and one of them is on leave actually. So we're in really good stead. Now, some second and third order effects, which I'm pretty sure a lot of folks haven't thought about, is our cooperative agreements. You know, our cooperative agreements is federal money that pays the salary of our state workforce, our state employees. Those are our facility maintainers, those are our bookkeepers. They take care of a lot of the day-to-day business of the National Guard, but they're state employees reimbursed with federal money. They should have been furloughed also because there's no federal money to pay them. However, their jobs are critical. The buildings still break. There's things that need fixing. They're my state workforce as far as they belong to the state of Alaska. They're the governors. We can't jack those folks around and have them go find other jobs and then replace them with that skill set and that knowledge on short order. So the state of Alaska has accepted the fact that we may not be reimbursed for the time that they have spent working. And that will require us to look probably for a supplemental or some type of an appropriation to pay for it, because the federal government isn't going to necessarily pay for it. But I'm not going to lay my state workforce off. That was a decision early on. Other states are not in that same good spot to be in. They don't have any money in the bank. There's states that are bankrupt that really depend on that day-to-day federal money coming in to compensate their state workforce. So they have to lay people off. They don't have any choices. You look around the different federal agencies, the Department of Defense is really getting treated well relative to some of the other folks. FAA is laid off, the federal law enforcement agencies. You look across the board, there is very few segments of our national government system that has the respect and the appreciation that the U.S. military has. So believe me, the congressional members who have been involved in this debate, whatever you want to call it, have been very sensitive to the fact that there are a lot of military members and their families, and that they have weight in this society. So they've gone out of their way to take care of us. But again, I want to make sure that the main thing, business is not normal. So we can't go out and buy gas, we can't travel, we can't send people to schools yet, we can't do a lot of things that you would think, well, I'm back to work, it's business, we're gonna get everything fixed. We can't buy new parts. We do not have, in the U.S. way of doing business, if you don't have an authority to spend and basically allot your money, you are in violation of the law and probably going to be held specifically to task. So we're going to be very careful not to get anybody in trouble. We are back to work under a federal authorization. What this is going to require you and every one of the chain of command and the supervisors is to look for creative ways as we start to draw down on our parts, or start to draw down on those areas, that there should be nobody not doing something, which is catching up on 12 years of war. There's a lot of work to be done. The Alaska National Guard is very fortunate that we're aligned with so many active duty missions, so there's a lot of accepted tasks. And accepted tasks has been pretty well defined as those ones we are authorized to spend money on because they directly support our national security or the war fight or deployments, something along those lines. So again, the chain of command has to stay engaged and communicate, because those definitions of accepted missions, those definitions of what status people in, where money can be spent, it changes continually. And you know and I know that one thing the federal government does real well is bring in a whole bunch of auditors when it's all said and done and look for ways in which it was jacked up at some process. Hindsight is 20/20. I do not want 20/20 hindsight taking people to task if we are very careful and deliberate in how we approach this. All right, so I need everybody's attitude to be, there's no large sense of urgency. Relax, be flexible, and we're going to get together as a team and get through this. And you're seeing the leadership. This is the earliest opportunity that I've had since everyone was authorized to come back to work. Yesterday I got the Army Guard, this morning I got the 168th, and now I'm in front of you. I want our chain of command to be out in front often. Even if we don't know anything, we need to be saying that we don't know something, what are your questions, and let us go try to find it out. General Grass has been a phenomenal chief this past 7 days. He is on text in the middle of the night. He's on morning vocal VTCs. He is the guy, I don't know when he sleeps, because I've got texts from him in the middle of the night, and he's right there in the next morning running the VTC. He is engaged, as is Olive Guard Bureau. And it's just not Guard Bureau engaged against the active duty or the folks at the Pentagon. Everybody across the board is truly looking out for your health and welfare, and we've made tremendous strides. So you got to feel confident. Although frustrated with our government, our chain of command in uniform has our backs, has the backs of our civilian employees, and is pretty well defined at this point that technicians are a critical part of our military. There is no tiered military here. A technician is a military member, as an AGR is a military member, as the Guard and the Reserve and the active duty, a team of one. And we're trying to make sure everybody is back to work. JBER has the same issues with their civilian workforce, and they're trying to get them back to work. So again, I'm going to just keep pounding that in, because that's about the one thing I have seen in the past 7 days is everybody working together. And that is very positive. Now, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities later on down the road where we can get disjointed and come at odds. But, you know, when it all comes together like a family, we don't always get along, but we're there for each other, and this is proving it this time. The real crux, the people who are going to be on the outs, and I'm looking around this room, and this is a room full of people, but we are all here with the primary purpose of supporting our traditional National Guardsmen. And our traditional National Guardsmen are being taken to task in this sense. The word inactive duty training, IDT, the word inactive means there is no money. So that's why you're seeing drills canceled. That's why you're seeing their normal activity, our National Guard traditional members, being taken to task. However, it's not money that's taken off the table. So the chain of command has to look across the board and really try not to inconvenience our traditional members by hoping or anticipating and thinking it's going to happen and hold them at the last minute. Maybe Friday night money will come in, we'll get them to drill. We need to figure out accepted IDT. That means those drill status guardsmen that specifically are drilling in anticipation of a deployment or an accepted mission. They're authorized to come in. That doesn't mean everybody. So those folks that don't come in, try to give them as much headway, as much word that maybe they've got a free weekend that they can spend with their family, that maybe they don't have to travel and then get here and realize they've traveled for nothing. We want to make sure that our guardsmen aren't taken to task. There's opportunities that they'll be able to make up drills later if need be. If they need a good year, we're going to make sure every opportunity is there and available. At the same time, their employers. If you're a supervisor with traditional National Guardsmen, if you could please reach out to your members' employers and provide this same thing, that we're in a situation where we don't necessarily know all the answers, but we're not trying to alienate our employers. If we don't have our employer support, the National Guard is definitely in a bad, precarious position for the work that we do. So again, those are the second and third order effects that people aren't seeing from a government shutdown. Because again, the training schedules go out a year in advance. People should anticipate what weekends out of the 52, 54 weekends available in a year that we are going to have drill weekend, and that is subject to being changed around, and I don't think we need to do that on short notice. So as far out that the command can provide guidance and opportunities that people can make up drills and or plan it out, fit it into a schedule, have an alternate work. Because again, I don't even know how long this government shutdown is going to occur. And realizing that once the government, if it gets back up and running, it's going to probably be under a continuing resolution. That continuing resolution is going to continue to drive issues as it expires and they get ready to shut the government down or get another continuing resolution. If the continuing resolution goes on for ad nauseum like it did last year, we're subject to sequestration. We would then be held to trying to save or constrain money in a much shorter time period like last year and have some of the same issues with sequestration out there. So there's a lot of bumps in the road, you guys coming down, or all you folks coming down. So I'm not trying to paint a gloomy picture. I'm just saying that's the reality we live in. Our challenge as leaders, our challenge as the most respected members of the United States government, I mean, society really does expect our military to be there when they need them. We need to stand strong, be flexible, and we're going to get through this. Now, as we start looking at different folks and different financial issues, there's resources that are out there. Our traditional Guards member, if they don't get a drill check, the bill still accrues for SGLI, for medical, for anything else. We're not going to turn any of those benefits off, but the bills will continue to accrue, so be sensitive to that. Folks that our anticipated paycheck should be out on time. I can't guarantee any of this, that's why I'm really talking in code, that I'm not locking anything in stone because I can't predict this. It is anticipated though that there should be no bumps in the pay. If there is, I absolutely implore you to please get with the chain of command. We're not mind readers. Let us help you work through a problem. Do not be stressed. Do not try to work through issues completely by yourself. This is a team effort, and we're going to try to figure out if it's a bank loan that we need to get the bank to defer on, if it's a house loan, if it's a car loan, whatever the issues are, let the chain of command weigh in and we're going to see what we can do to make sure that we can at least mitigate and offset some of the impact of this inconvenience. Whatever questions you have probably been asked by one of the 54 adjutants general over the 7 days. Guard Bureau has been very good to research and get after finding the right answer to most questions, and they've tried to get it up on the web. So all of the command has access to these answers. And the good thing about being up on the web, the answers change once in a while. So as they change and refresh, the command needs to be sensitive to the fact that just because they answered the very same question yesterday, today they need to look at that web page and make sure it is still the right answer. I'm telling you, this is how flexible this is. It's not jacked up, it's that things change because some of the input and some of the decisions that are made changes the entire calculus on how folks look at things. So again, this isn't a shortage of money. This is a lack of authorization to do business as normal. So again, we're still going to have funds available. We will be able to drive our vehicles, operate our aircraft, and maintain everything we've got at some point in time once Congress passes some type of authorization to make that happen. So again, this is not a budget drill.
All right, let me stop there just for a second. Go ahead.
Sir, thank you for your time. Kevin Combs, 176 Maintenance. Do you have any idea when AT may be coming back? We talked about our DSGs, but I've got two guys. One of them's up for trade training, trying to get a promotion, and the other one is bumping up against a good retirement year that you mentioned. So can you give us any guidance at all about AT and UTAs so that they can get the training that we require of them, as well as a good retirement year?
Annual training, clearly it's okay to bring in people on annual training if it's in support of an accepted mission. The other thing, and it's kicking around Guard Bureau because they're trying to get an answer on that, Texas and Pennsylvania and a couple of the big states were of the opinion that POMA addresses all of the mandatory military activity. Annual training, in their view, is not inactive training. That's part of our job, is to have annual training. So the jury's still out. I was on an airplane and I did not participate in this morning's teleconference, but that I'll get an answer to, because that's exactly the issue we're trying to address. That's not optional. That's a mandatory requirement for our National Guardsmen. So just like our full-time force have mandatory requirements to be at work, we're trying to get an answer, because it's our position, National Guard Bureau's opinion, that annual training is a requirement, not an option, and that we should not impact that at all. And again, as they are trying to interpret everything as broadly as possible, we might be successful on that. But it is definitely not our intent to screw anybody up on a successful year. So we will defer that wherever it can, but if we miss a school, that is a problem. If there's annual training and IDT weekends that are set up in anticipation of an inspection, don't stress, because I've also been advised inspectors and all of those requirements have all been shifted also, because they're impacted by this same workforce constraint, and they're going to be adjusting accordingly. And you'll always have the bureaucrat that wants to be efficient and get it done right away. We're going to push back real hard on that. If you had a drill weekend that was specifically set and you had to accomplish tasks in preparation for that inspection, you'll still be able to do that, because the inspection is going to be set off. And I don't know how long or how far off, but we're going to do everything we can to put it in such a manner that this does not tie your hands behind your back as you try to get forward to get those evaluations and inspections done. Thank you for that question. That is one of those do-outs, though, that if you can run that specific person up through the chain so we have very clear fidelity of that, it might be an accepted area that we can just put them on AT without any further questioning, okay? But without knowing all the details, I want to be able to see that question specifically by name, okay? Some other questions out there, you guys? These are the kind of questions that if you have, probably 10 other people have also. And if you don't want to ask it in this form, that's fine, but get it through an email, get it somewhere in the chain of command so that I can run it up Because these type of questions are the questions which the tags are actually asking Chief National Guard Bureau, and he's going back to the Joint Chiefs of Staff to get answers from. And these are you think they're small questions, they're not. Every single soldier and airman is critical and important. I started to say that. Do not think that your job is any less because you're in a specific category or because you think you're in the reserves versus the active duty. Everybody is a team player. Everybody is equally important. And we are going to make sure we take care of every single soldier and airman, employee, civilian, family member. That's our job. And like I said, I don't abdicate that just because Congress can't figure out how to pay the bills. So we're going to stay here in Alaska, and the other 53 states and territories in the District of Columbia are going to be watching their lane, and all of us coming together are going to make sure we get through this as best we can and not leave anybody behind. Other questions? I'm going to put Colonel Winky, General Winky on the spot here for a second and let him talk for just a few minutes. And that gives me a chance to think if I missed something. So Scott, take.
All right, nothing like impromptu speaking, right? Well, first I want to start off by saying thanks. I know this has been a long 7 days since we began the month of October in the fiscal year 2014. And I will tell you that I appreciate everybody's hard work and understanding, mostly the understanding part, because I got to share General Katkus's sentiment in the fact that this has been the most frustrating and confusing event in my entire 26 years in the military. I watched things change 5 times a day, and as I was getting ready to type the message out, it became totally irrelevant what I was about to tell everyone in the organization. And so thank you for just being the great airman that you are and having a little bit of patience as we try and sort this thing out. I will tell you that we have 2 primary accepted missions here in the 176th Wing, and most of you know that, and if you don't, here's what they are. Rescue and C-17. C-17 missions are specifically to support TWICF and any 1 Alpha type missions. What's that?
ADS.
And yeah, air defense for the ACA mission. I'm sorry about that, guys. Forgot about you. But beyond that, the other missions that we do every day are not considered accepted missions. That's why, if you take a second, and I'll stop talking, it's so quiet around here. The F-22s that you've seen flying have specific authorization to maintain currency only so that they can continue the ACA mission. Our government at least got it right, in my opinion, far enough to the extent that we need to protect our nation and our borders and our people. And we'll figure the rest out as we go. So, barring any questions you got out there for me, I apologize for not, straight up front, I apologize. Apologize for not getting out and sending you guys email after email and bludgeoning you with information. But I will tell you that it all would have been irrelevant by the time you opened it up. Things were changing that fast. What we have done to try and give you at least a source of what's coming into us, the latest and greatest information is going to be posted on our Facebook or a link to it from our Facebook page for the 176th Wing Facebook, not the JBEAR Facebook. Okay, there's a lot of guidance that's going out on the JBEAR Facebook, and Colonel Duffy called me and I said, put out there what you need to put out there. We will try and message to our folks that what you're putting out is different guidance than what we're getting. We get our guidance directly down from the Director of the Air National Guard through the Air National Guard Readiness Center for the blue side of the house, and for national events and issues directly through the tag, General Grass. And what Colonel Duffy's getting and posting out on his Facebook page is coming directly from PACAF. And I'm telling you that the guidance is different. The authorizations are different. And so we need to stay in our lane and work together to make this happen. Sir?
You know, Scott just hit on something. Just counter-drug was a tremendously contentious issue, as you had the Army and the Air. Now, counter-drug is a joint program. People show up wearing different uniforms, but do the exact same job in some circumstances. Exact same job. But some people were allowed to come to work, and some people weren't. It was incredibly divisive, and it wasn't intentional. It's just the two services interpreting things differently. So that has all gone to centralized interpretation, I guess, if there's such a animal. But it still gets jacked around between the services, between the COCOMs, between everything. You can imagine somebody has a different take on something, and it trickles down and impacts the soldiers and airmen. And in this case, the soldiers, airmen, the Marines, the Coast Guard, you name it, is getting impacted. The Coast Guard, man, they're Homeland Security. They're not even DOD and getting treated like redheaded stepchildren out there in the back 40. I mean, they are really, challenged also, as every federal agency is. Scott hit it really importantly. Now, you guys have seen me in front of you more than one time, and sometimes it's with good news and sometimes with bad news, but I try not to waste your time, but I try to make sure that I'm there, and if I need to get beaten up, corrected, adjusted, whatever you guys need to provide me information that I can do the best I can for you, I'm willing to stand up in front of a crowd and take my lumps and or advice or get corrected. I expect that of all of my chain of command, from the most junior first line leader all the way to my most senior brand new general officers. We need to be, as leaders, out in front. I'm going to ask the chief to come up and speak next on the NCO side too, because I think you need to hear it not just from the officers but from the NCO to be able to see and visibly hear that I can't tell you enough. We want to hear any issues and try to fix it. So, Chief Nelson, I know your public speaking ability is going to be challenged here a little bit, but get on board, man. It's fun sitting here. At least I'm not making you sing the Army song in front of everybody. That's.
Thanks, sir.
All right, everybody hear me?
Hey, Chief!
Okay, I got to stand up in front of the wing leadership, squadron group, and wing level last Friday, and I said I'm just going to keep my opinion to myself on this. So thanks, General Katkus, General Winky, for giving us this great advice. This is not good. It's not a good time for anybody, but the big thing is, the key here is we've all got to stick together. There can't be differences, wedges, driven between units, organizations, technicians, ADRs, DSGs. That's the worst thing that we can do. So just make sure that you guys stick together, help each other out, and look out for each other. That's pretty much all I got.
We're all Midnight Sun Guardians, Chief.
Chief, that was the perfect message. If there's one thing that you can take away from this that is fact, the Chief just hit on it right there, because other things are going to change constantly. I think we've done a fairly good job with social media. Our kids nowadays, everything's on an iPhone, everything's in Facebook, everything is on Twitter or Instagram. We're going to try to communicate that way. We will put out old newsletters for some of us old guys that still need glasses and read papers and all the other things we can. And personal contact. Our command is going to be out walking around. They're going to be out talking to people and trying to get a sense of, are we hitting the mark on making sure we're communicating? Because, again, every speech I give any of my supervisors hits on the three priorities: recruiting and retention, safety, and standards. So if we're not out there talking to our people and we lose one person because we didn't provide them the information they felt they belonged to an organization that looked out for their welfare and took care of them and they left, we're wrong. We need to communicate that we're doing everything, we're doing our level best to get the answers, to make sure that we take care of our folks. During this whole time, it's been 7 days now, there's stress, there's different opportunities where your mind might be someplace else. Do not do something which is irrevocable, like hurt yourself. Safety is paramount. There's no rush to do anything. And again, I just said this isn't about money, so there's no need to look for shortcuts or standards or take any type of top off of something because we think we're being more efficient than we need to be. So again, I can't stress enough, stay to the basics that we have as our priorities. Recruiting and retention, safety and standards. Nobody needs to be hurt out here. Nobody needs to take the stress home and jack up the relationship at home with the families. Our traditionals need to make sure that that relationship with employers is absolutely paramount. We make sure that is solid. If we do that, we're going to be fine, because the mission's still going to be there. You already know what the accepted missions are. The other accepted mission is we still have deployments. We still have to get people out the door. I've got the Army side going out. We've got people in theater in Kuwait. We've got people engaged in Afghanistan on the air side. We are still at Greeley. We are still at Clear. We are still all over the place with real life, no kidding missions. And that's important, and we are going to continue to support those accepted activities. And everywhere else we can, we're going to try to put pressure, as the Adjutants General, political pressure, because that's also what I can do as a commissioner, is as the state of Alaska and the other 53 states and territories in the District of Columbia continue to put pressure on Congress to get this resolved and get back to work for what the taxpayers are paying them to do. That's what we are continuing to engage daily on.